I told a pushy coworker I wasn't interested, and now I'm getting texts from an unknown number describing every step I take outside the house. I've always considered myself someone who can handle uncomfortable situations. Working in retail management teaches you to navigate everything from irate customers to the overly friendly guy on the night shift who doesn't understand boundaries. But this feels different. IT started innocently enough, or at least it seemed that way. His name is Jeremy. Mid-30s, wiry build, the kind of guy who overshares about niche hobbies in the break room but avoids eye contact when you're face-to-face. He joined our team 6 months ago. At first, he seemed harmless, a little odd, sure, but harmless. Then he started lingering, waiting for me by the employee lockers at the end of my shift, bringing me coffee, just because. Once, he brought me a framed photo of a landscape he said reminded him of me. I brushed it off as socially awkward friendliness, but it escalated quickly. One night after closing, I was walking to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. It was Jeremy. "Just making sure you're safe," he said with a grin that made my stomach twist. I told him, kindly but firmly, that I wasn't interested in anything beyond a professional relationship. For a while, it seemed like he got the message. He stopped hovering, stopped finding excuses to talk to me about nothing. I thought that was the end of it, but 2 weeks ago, I started getting texts from an unknown number. They started small, "Nice red coat today," or "Enjoying your iced coffee." Little things I could have dismissed as coincidences. Then, last night, after a grocery run, I got this green tote bag, 2 bags of frozen pizza, and oat milk. Solid choices. I froze in my driveway, clutching my grocery bag so hard the plastic started to tear. Someone had been watching me, and I have a sick feeling I know who it is. After that text, I spent the night pacing my living room, every sound outside making me jump. I checked all the locks twice, pulled the curtains tight, and even considered sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow. I kept asking myself, am I overreacting? Maybe it wasn't Jeremy. Maybe it was just some random creep. But deep down, I knew. The next day at work, I couldn't stop watching him out of the corner of my eye. Jeremy was in his usual spot at the stock counter, labeling boxes, his head tilted down. He didn't look at me once. Not when I walked by, not during our morning meeting, not even during lunch when he usually hovered nearby with some odd comment about the weather. But something performed. Like he was trying too hard not to notice me. I decided to confront him. Not outright. I wasn't that brave. But I walked up to the stockroom and asked a casual question about inventory just to gauge his reaction. "Everything's good back here," he said without looking up. His voice was calm, casual even. But his hand? His hand was gripping the box cutter so tightly his knuckles had gone white. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding. That night, another text came in. "Nice navy hoodie. Blue looks good on you." I had worn a navy hoodie when I stopped at the gas station after work. My stomach churned. The messages were becoming more specific, more frequent. And they weren't just about my clothes, they were about my routine. Leaving the house at 7:45 every morning? Very punctual. "You didn't go for your usual Tuesday coffee run. Everything okay?" Whoever was sending these wasn't just watching me occasionally, they were studying me. I started changing up my routine. Took different routes to work. Parked in different spots. Avoided errands after dark. But every time I tried to outmaneuver the shadow, another text would come through, trying to switch things up. Smart. "But I still see you, Doc." I went to the police. Showed them the texts. Filed a report. But without proof of who was sending them, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to stay vigilant and avoid being alone after dark. Helpful? The worst part? Jeremy started acting normal again. Chatting with coworkers, joking with customers, blending back into the background. But every now and then, I'd catch him staring at me. Not directly, always just slightly off, like he was looking past me. The tension was eating me alive. I was barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. And then, 3 nights ago, I got this text. "You look tired. You should get some rest." I was sitting in my living room, lights off, curtains closed. How did he know? After that last text, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch in the dark, phone clutched in my hand, eyes darting between the curtains and the hallway leading to my bedroom. Every creak of the house felt like an intrusion. Every shadow outside felt like a figure watching. At some point in the night, I decided I couldn't stay there anymore. I grabbed a bag, stuffed it with essentials, and went to stay with my friend Leah. She's the kind of friend who doesn't ask too many questions until you're ready to talk, and when she opened her door at 2 a.m., wearing pajama pants and holding her dog under one arm, she just said, "Couch or air mattress?" "Couch," I whispered. The next morning, I finally told her everything. The texts, the creeping suspicion about Jeremy, the feeling of being watched even behind closed curtains. Leah didn't try to rationalize it or downplay it. She just nodded and said, "You're not staying there alone again." I called out of work for the day, claiming a family emergency. Jeremy would know I wasn't coming in. The thought made my stomach twist. By late afternoon, Leah convinced me to return to my place, with her by my side, to grab a few more things. Stepping into my own home felt wrong, like I was trespassing in someone else's space. The air felt stale, heavy. We went through the rooms quickly. Leah stayed by my side, chatting about random things to keep the mood light. I was in my bedroom tossing some clothes into my bag when Leah froze in the doorway. "What?" I asked, my voice sharp. She didn't answer. She just walked to my window, pushed the curtain aside, and pointed. There, tucked low in the bushes outside my window, was a small glint of metal. A camera lens. My heart stopped. Leah immediately pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. I felt like I was underwater, my ears ringing, my chest tight. Someone, Jeremy, had been watching me from right there, just outside my bedroom. We called the police again. This time, with a camera as evidence, they took me more seriously. Officers came, bagged the camera, and told me they'd check the footage. They also suggested I stay somewhere else for a while. So I did. Leah and I packed up as much as we could, and I officially moved into her guest room. But later that night, I got another text. "Leaving home so suddenly?" A little dramatic, don't you think? Leah's dog barked as I dropped my phone on the floor. Whoever was watching me, it wasn't just through the camera. They were still watching. The text stayed on my screen, glowing in the dim light of Leah's living room. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't quite catch my breath. Someone knew I had left my apartment. Someone knew I was here. Leah checked the locks again while I sat frozen on the couch. Every noise outside, every passing car, every gust of wind, felt deliberate, like someone was creeping closer. We spent the night in full lockdown mode. Curtains drawn, doors bolted, every light off. Leah gave me her guest room and left her dog, Baxter, with me. He curled up by my feet, his ears twitching at every creak of the floorboards. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I called in sick again. I wasn't ready to step foot back in that store, to see him. But it didn't matter. Jeremy had already noticed my absence. Leah heard from a mutual coworker that he'd been asking questions about me, if anyone had heard from me, if I was okay. Mid-afternoon, another text arrived. "You're not at Leah's anymore." Did I scare you off? The air felt sharp and thin. We hadn't left the house, hadn't even opened a window. Whoever was watching me wasn't relying on guesswork, they knew. Leah called the police again. This time, they sent an officer to check the perimeter of her house. He found nothing, no cameras, no footprints, no sign of forced entry. He told us to keep documenting everything, to stay vigilant, and left us with the same tired, rehearsed reassurances, but his presence didn't make me feel any safer. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep hiding at Leah's place, clutching my phone, waiting for the next message to come through. I needed to take back some control, to stop feeling like a cornered animal. I decided to go back to work the next day. The store was public, filled with cameras, surrounded by people. If Jeremy, or whoever this was, wanted to watch me, they'd have to do it with eyes on them too. Leah didn't agree, but she understood. When I arrived at the store the next morning, Jeremy was already there. He glanced up from his phone as I walked past the break room and gave me a look I couldn't quite place, somewhere between curiosity and amusement. All day, I felt him nearby. Never too close, never overtly inappropriate. But his presence was constant, like a shadow stitched to my heels. The end of my shift. As I walked across the parking lot to my car, I felt a buzz in my pocket. "See you tomorrow." The lot was empty except for my car. Jeremy's was already gone, but the sinking feeling in my gut told me he wasn't far. Back at my apartment, I double-checked every lock, every window. The place felt cold and unfamiliar, like I was trespassing in my own life. I avoided the living room window entirely. I didn't want to know if someone was out there watching. The texts kept coming, always brief but pointed. Skipping your morning coffee? You must be tired. That lamp by your couch, warm light suits you. Each message was a reminder that normalcy was impossible. My routines, my safe spaces, all exposed. AT work. Jeremy blended in like nothing was wrong. He chatted with customers, laughed at jokes in the break room, and scribbled notes in the stockroom like the model employee. But every now and then, I'd catch him staring, just for a moment, just long enough to leave a chill in my spine. I tried to act normal, but my body was in survival mode. I started avoiding certain hallways, taking my breaks in my car instead of the break room, keeping coworkers between me and Jeremy whenever possible. But it wasn't enough. One evening, while closing up, I noticed something off in the break room. My locker was slightly ajar, the lock hanging loose. I always double-check the lock before leaving. Inside, nothing was missing, but a single sticky note was left on top of my bag. "You're more careful than most." My hands shook as I closed the locker, the metal door rattling in its frame. I went straight to my manager and showed her the note. She furrowed her brow, asked if I had any idea who could have done it. I hesitated before saying Jeremy's name. She promised to review the security footage, but I could tell from her expression that she didn't believe me, or didn't want to believe me. Jeremy was dependable, quiet, good at his job. Someone like him wouldn't do something like this. But I knew. That night, another text came through. "Careful who you talk to. Not everyone's on your side." My stomach turned, my vision blurred around the edges. It felt like my world was folding in on itself. I was trapped, at work, at home, even in my own head, and Jeremy knew it. The sticky note sat heavy in my mind, like a stain I couldn't scrub out. I stopped sleeping entirely. Every shadow outside my window felt like a figure, every creak in my apartment like someone moving closer. AT work. My manager claimed she'd reviewed the security footage, but found nothing. No one near my locker, no signs of tampering. She suggested I might have forgotten to lock it properly, her tone thick with polite disbelief. Jeremy stayed in the background, always just within sight, but never too close. He seemed to thrive in that space, where he could hover just at the edge of suspicion without ever crossing the line. The texts didn't stop. They started arriving during my shifts. "Nice hair today. You seem distracted. Everything okay?" One afternoon, after a particularly long shift, I walked to my car in the nearly empty parking lot. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the asphalt. My car was parked in the back corner, far enough away that no one could see me clearly from the entrance. As I unlocked my door, I noticed something tucked under my windshield wiper. A printed photo. It was me, sitting in my living room. In the photo, I was on my couch, staring at my phone. The curtains were drawn, but a faint crack let in just enough light to illuminate my face. I dropped the photo and looked around wildly. The parking lot was empty, but it felt like someone was watching me. Back in my apartment, I barricaded the door with a chair and sat in the dark. My phone buzzed. "Did you like the picture?" I felt something snap inside me. The fear, the silence, it was suffocating. I called the police again, my voice trembling as I described the photo. They promised to send someone over. When the officer arrived, he examined the photo and asked me if I had any idea who could have taken it. I said Jeremy's name again, my voice cracking. He nodded, jotted something down, and said they'd follow up with him. But I could tell from the practiced neutrality on his face that he didn't think much would come of it. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo, saw myself frozen on my couch, unaware that someone had been looking in. Morning, I made a decision. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I wrote everything down, every text, every interaction, every suspicion. I sent it all to my manager and told her I wouldn't be coming back to work until something was done. Then I waited, but Jeremy didn't wait. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and my apartment filled with shadows, my phone buzzed one more time. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I dropped the phone, my pulse hammering in my ears. The line between fear and reality had fully blurred. Jeremy wasn't just watching me. He was closing in. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days. The curtains stayed shut, the doors double-locked, and every light in my home stayed off after sunset. I sat in the corner of my living room, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for the next message. When it finally came, it wasn't like the others. "I'm tired of waiting." See you soon. The air felt thick, heavy. My mind raced through every possibility. Was he outside right now? Was he coming in? I couldn't sit there anymore. I had to do something. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and ran to my car. I didn't have a plan, just the overwhelming need to not be there. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see Jeremy standing in the shadows. I drove straight to the police station. I shoved my phone at the officer behind the counter, showed him every message, every photo, every scrap of evidence I had. I don't know if it was the panic in my voice or the clear escalation in the last text, but this time they listened. Jeremy was brought in for questioning the next morning. My manager finally reviewed the footage again, this time more thoroughly. They found him lingering near my locker. They found him standing at the edge of the parking lot, watching my car after hours. And, most chillingly, they found him hovering by the employee entrance after his shift had ended, just waiting. When they searched his locker, they found the phone he had been using to text me. They found printed photos of me, some from work, some from outside my apartment. Jeremy was arrested. I wish I could say it ended there, that the fear disappeared the moment they took him away. But it didn't. It lingered in the quiet moments, in the way I still check over my shoulder in parking lots, in how I flinch every time my phone buzzes unexpectedly. The text stopped, but their shadow remains. I moved out of my apartment and left my job shortly after. Leah helped me pack up my things, and we spent one last night in my empty living room. Baxter curled up at my feet. "Are you okay?" she asked as we stood at the door, ready to leave for the last time. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway, because Jeremy is gone. But the truth is, some shadows stay with you long after the light comes back. The end.